This is a reading of chapters 1 and 2 of A Dirge for Cascius by Calum Lott. Chapter 1. Born in Black Flames. For Cascius! Curian's determined voice roared above the engulfing black flames. We have to keep moving. For our son. They will not take him from this world. Say it, Ballad. They will not take our son. They will not take him, Ballad cried. Her crystalla, a shimmering violet veil around her body, cradled the tiny Cascius, who was deep in a controlled sleep and barely an hour old. That was when the void fire descended like black rain from the sky, when the mad diseased Zenalian dreadminds brought their cosmic flood of fear and sang a hymn of despair in his name. That was when he came. Zikarin. Clenching him tighter on her chest, the warmth of her newborn skin drove her on. They didn't get much further when a wall of dark fire surged before them, taking the shape of a horrific, ashy white grin. The pair darted away, weaving through the crumbling city of Coronial as desperate pale figures. The city, once gleaming in the pale green dawn, now melted in a tempest of black flames. The void fire danced with controlled violence, as though the flames themselves had malicious thoughts. Zikarin's unique mark of terrorism. They engulfed entire edifices, chasing the fleeing citizens as flailing shadows and flaming vortices, laughing and toying with their prey. There were no burnt corpses strewn around the city. Zikarin's fire reduced even their bones into a sickening fog that permeated everything. The fear seeped into the minds of Ballad and Curian, though they struggled against its taint. They would not let death claim their son. Zikarin steered his enslaved dreadminds as they wildly cavorted through the city, unleashing their flavour of blind and cruel destruction that had no limits, not even to their own cursed kind. As the city's complete destruction neared, so too had their fun almost concluded. The Velutrans fled from the city of Coronial in any direction they could, but none got far. The dreadminds dominated the outskirts, sky and void above, making escape futile. Only the shrill, dying screams made it out of the city. Not that there was anyone to hear the cries. Everyone in the burning city was alone, and help would not arrive in time to save them. There was no escaping this day with their lives. Ballad and Cascius Carcyde knew it. Their old life was over. But something innate had burst forth from that deep fabric of their beings that propelled them forward. They would do anything to ensure Cascius lived. Buried beneath an ocean of void fire, the haunting laughter of the dreadminds chased the pair. The billowing flames roared all around them as they raced down the narrow city paths, gifted flight by their crystallis. The inward collapse of a small tower forced the pair into the base of a taller burning one. As they did, 4 dreadminds fell from the black flames above and landed between them, their cursed armour and flesh immune to the wild void fire. Ballad swung back to see Curian engaging the pack of dreadminds. Their unnatural augmentations of limbs and weaponry were flailing with vile glee. Curian yelled and grunted along with his starry white blades as they screeched against his enemies in quick, warped succession. Despite Curian's training as a sage sept, a guardian forged in the galaxy's turmoil, there was only so much even a superior fighter could do when outnumbered, caught off guard, and weary from dozens of similar clashes. Curian collapsed one blade, the Krylus core in his silver wristband spawning a crested shield to fend off the oncoming attacks from one side, whilst the blade in his other hand continued to clash against another enemy. The small, translucent purple barrier of his forearm took a flurry of blows before it vanished with a distorted bang. The dread mines brought their flaming black blades down upon his right arm before he could move. Ballard watched the impact hit him like the weight of a star, bending his knees to the ground, but his crystalla kept him steadfast. Mist rippling over his arm as it absorbed most of the damage. He didn't have much armour left. Most of it had been hammered away, keeping herself and Cascius alive throughout this never-ending nightmare. Torn between Cascius' safety and helping Curian, Ballard hesitated, but the despair in his eyes spurred her on. Coalescing 2 blades of her own, and her crystalla holding Cascius asleep on her chest as though he were not there, she forwarded into the melee. She cut into the backs of 2 dread mines, swiftly overpowering their weak and poorly made armour as they carved into their accursed flesh. Red and black liquid sprayed out in a shower of death as she severed limbs, and her sword annihilated them into pulp. One after the other, the dread mines fell to the ground, yet not before the last remaining dread mine had struck Curian on his forearm, breaking through the weakened crystalla and severing his limb cleanly off below the elbow. He collapsed to his knees, and his blade crumbled to mist. Swiftly falling in to seal the spurting wound, Ballard finished off this last dread mine, freeing the creature's head from her abominable body. And Ballard rushed to inspect the wound. Curian never even gave a grunt of pain, thanks to the no pain serum, but a deeper pain marked his weary face, the pain of failure. Curian pushed her away and instantly sent words to her mind. "Keep moving, Ballard. We have not failed yet." "There is nowhere left to go," Ballard protested, her voice rotten with despair. His eyes flashed up. "If there is nowhere left, then we shall keep moving until the cosmos ends and we join it in nothingness. Keep moving! For Cascius, our son!" He pushed her ahead and got back to his feet to keep moving. But there was no momentary relief. A wave of void fire swelled into the chamber, swirling into a sphere. A flame chasm tore open, revealing a tall, pale-skinned, unclothed and unscathed human. A man, though he was so defiled with dreadful technology, he could have been anything. His long, snow-white hair shifted with the misty blaze that raged against the enveloping black flames. A mouth leaked a tormenting grin of void fire through perfected white teeth, above which sat 2 all-seeing ceaseless watchtowers, wholly black, save for a single blood-red pupil in each. Zakirin the Exiled had come to participate in the last dregs of fun. Curian looked back, defeat in his wet eyes. "For Cascius!" His pained expression disintegrated into a broken, teary smile. "I love you!" he bellowed above the raging flames. Resolved to his fate, Curian whipped around to Zakirin. He propelled himself forward, pouring everything into his sword, which erupted in swirling trails of purple, black, and other radiant colours. Curian raised the blazing blade high as he soared towards his enemy, defiant. Zakirin possessed no blade. The exiled Zenlian did not require one. Ballard numbly stared at her partner as he called out his last declaration of love. She could not return the words, nor fully comprehend the madness of what was happening. There was only all-consuming horror. The warmth of Cascius upon her chest suddenly dragged her mind back. At that moment she knew Curian was sacrificing himself to give them a moment longer alive. Another chance for their son to live. She would not waste it. "I love you, Curian," Ballard cried in mind. "I'll find you again, in the Cos realm." Ballard's crystalla propelled her away at the swiftest pace she could control. She had only been flying for several seconds when a massive explosion cracked and thundered from behind. Her armour kept her steady as the shockwave rocked past, funneling the black flames into a vortex. Their flickering tips singed the ends of her long, silver flowing hair and white robes. She soared out from beneath the tower, crashing through pillars and walls, anything to get away. A descending sky of beautiful creations she used to call home now fell atop her as burning debris. Ballard barely kept ahead of the wreckage as it spread across to the surrounding buildings. Curian, my love. There was no time for reflection. Thinking would only mean the end of her son. The motherly, primal instinct to protect her young was now all she had left. A ceiling of molten night collapsed upon her, but she dove through a narrow gap out into another corridor. Flames touched everything, burned everything. They ate away at Ballard's Crystalla wherever she went, exposing her to the cruel heat and suffocating air. On and on she darted through the disintegrating city. Hold on, my son. I'll get you somewhere safe. A dread mind waylaid her as she turned a corner. Double Ballard's size, he was already swinging his axe sideways, tearing through the surrounding wall until it collided with her shield that she narrowly managed to summon in time. But it was already weak and instantly shattered. The hit sent her crashing through the opposite wall, knocking her some distance until her Crystalla recovered. Bringing her to a stop, Ballard gasped in temporary anguish from the impact that leaked through. I'm reaching my end, Curian. Gritting her teeth through the pain, Ballard looked down at Cascius. So serene, so quiet. She felt his tiny heart beating against her own. My son, I will keep you. An axe flew out of the wall she'd been knocked through. Her shield would not recover for another 60 seconds, so she dodged out of the way and soared back towards the Dreadmind, who careened out of the darkness. Reinvigorated with protecting Cascius, Ballard moved swifter than her enemy as they danced across this burning chamber of blackness. Every grinding echo from their clashing blades mingled with the turbulent flames. They battled on, but her strikes were more precise. Her reason to win was greater than his. Feinting with a left jab, Ballard whipped her other blade around and up. The impact shattered the Dreadmind's remaining armour and severed his thick arm. Unbothered and madly laughing, he brought the axe down, but again she dodged and sliced off his other arm. Drunk on madness, the Dreadmind lunged at her with an open mouth, ready to sink shiny black teeth into flesh. Her body was still committed to the movement of her last swing, so her side and back were exposed to the hungry enemy, but she knew he was already defeated. The misty starlight blade collapsed and reversed out the other side of her hilt, straight into the Dreadmind's mouth. Ballard collapsed the blade into nothing as the cursed being fell lifelessly to the floor. Ballard stumbled forward in a weary daze. How much more do I have to endure? Her resolve was rapidly deteriorating. How many more do I have to kill for him to be safe? Her body started crumbling like the burning building around her. She fell to the ground, weeping in hopelessness. I'm sorry, Ballard wailed as she peered down through the tears at Cassius's calm, sleeping face. I'm sorry I could not give you a life. I'm sorry I failed to protect you. Please, please forgive me. She turned her head away, squeezing her eyes shut with guilt. When they opened a slit, Ballard noticed a small fissure in the polished stone floor at arm's length. A hole made from some foul weapon during these last hours of fighting. Glancing back down at her only child, her sleeping son, she found a sliver of resolve once more. Ballard took a deep breath. They will not take you. The remnants of her previously imperceptible Crystalla now shimmered with a transparent purple as it drifted off her body in a misty river, falling until it wreathed the tiny Cascius in an ovoid barrier. From the silver band upon her wrist, Ballard released the cryless core as Curian had. The black orb rose up under her command and drifted, merging into the barrier with a brilliant ripple of colours. Her robes faded away, joining the shield around the child. A mother and son, naked in birth, naked in death. Ballard immediately choked and coughed on the suffocating smoke. The heat stung her exposed flesh. She was barely able to breathe now that her only protection was gone. Nevertheless, she endured it. It was all worth it to protect Cascius. Now fortified within the Cryolus core, this secondary wound would keep him alive for some weeks. Every bit counts. It has to endure long enough for this chaos to end. With this, she gave her son everything, save the small vestige of her crystalla sealing her wounds. Ballard gently lifted Cascius off her chest with her own hands. All was set. But still, she held her child through the shield. The thought of letting go for a brief moment, let alone forever, haunted her fading being. Without the aid of her crystalla, Cascius was incredibly heavy in her weak arms. The serum coursing through her veins no longer provided relief. Her physical shell was broken. She sensed her elan vital, her entire self yearning to return to where it came from. As the world around her burned, Ballard pulled Cascius to her chest one last time. It took all her strength to sway and hum the same melody her mother had sung throughout her younger years. Giving everything to her son was now her purpose, and this song would be her last gift. Gentle words began flowing off her tongue that the cursed flames and melodies of chaos could not defile. Time slowed. The madness inside her being wanted to stay right there with Cascius, even if it meant his death. Yet the sounds of death were the thing that shattered this momentary bliss and returned her mind to the desperate reality. The thunder of a collapsing building, ravenous flames, warps, explosions, dying shrieks, and a growing, mad laughter all contributed to the symphony of mayhem that pushed Ballard onward. She had to say goodbye now, before it was too late. Ballard lowered Cascius into the ruptured ground and bitterly let go. Her tears fell, absorbing into the barrier as it burrowed itself deeper into the crevice. All she wanted was to wake her son so she could see his eyes open to the world for the first time. Yet it could not be. She wept right there until the darkness below swallowed Cascius whole. Ballard could no longer protect him, but perhaps the planet, her crystalla, and her voice could. Ballard crawled back to the wretch's corpse through the pools of his warm and sticky foul blood that had mixed with her own. She stumbled to her feet with heaving gasps of pain and woe. Gripping the armless corpse by its short black hair, she painfully dragged it back to where she had buried Cascius. She did not curse herself for giving her entire crystalla away, the thing which could have easily moved this body. Ballard simply got on with the task. Touching the repulsive being sickened what was left of her elan vital, but it was nothing compared to the thought of failing Cascius. Ballard let go as the corpse covered the hole that Cascius had descended into. Panting and weary, she collapsed to the ground and leaned her back against the dead Dreadmind, concealing what was left of the hole. Her tears still flowed. They had never stopped. Her breathing slowed. Her elan vital, her connection to this world, was fading faster. I guess we never quite made it to Sagehood, did we, Curian? Her ragged voice had a tinge of hope. Maybe our boy will get there one day. The horrific wails of an approaching torment forced Ballard to withdraw the dregs of a crystalla that sealed her wounds. They burst anew, raining blood on Cascius's sinking barrier. Grunting, she fused everything left of her crystalla into a solid, gleaming silver gun. Ballard clenched the grip of the gun with trembling hands. She barely managed to hold on to it, yet was compelled to manually clutch the gun, not control it with thought. Shrill laughter, howls of agony and surging flames exploded directly ahead of Ballard. Perverted faces gnawed outward from the black inferno. An arch in the wall of fire parted to reveal the pale exiled. In one raised hand, Zakarian held out the bloodied head of Curian. through some cursed defilement, this head was still alive and begging. "Come to me, my love. I found us passage into Malnetha's embrace. Ballad!" Zakiran's grin gleamed white against the burning madness of the world. "Sing with him, and I'll grant your love a star in the coming endless night." Channeling Cascius' strength to flow through her one last time, Ballad blocked out the violation of her love, and a faint smile blossomed. Her baby was safe, wrapped in shadow far below. Now, elsewhere in time. Closing her weeping eyes, Ballad lifted the gun to her head, and all went black. Chapter 2. No different. Sorrow was pleasure. Cascius opened his eyes, but the blackness endured. The darkness remained every time he used recall. It wasn't often that he relived this memory of his parents' death, at least anymore. It was only reserved for special occasions such as today. After all, it was the 200th anniversary of his birth, the anniversary of their death. Fear and anguish of the entire encounter lingered in waves of tingling euphoria. The punishment became an unquenchable pleasure that radiated throughout his body. When he was younger, after he rediscovered the truth of their death, he would recall this memory as often as his mind allowed. It began in memoriam, yet that quickly descended into self-punishment, eventually devolving into a foul kind of elation. His parents' death wasn't the only tragedy he relived to appease what became a twisted addiction. So many plagued his waking moments, one above all the rest. But it was not the memory he recalled today. Cascius' breath was heavy and cold in the dark, but the imagined warmth of his mother's last embrace bathed him in sorrow. Pure, euphoric sorrow. 35 times the star of Coronial rose and fell, blessing the world with light whilst he was trapped alone in the dark. All he had was the soft voice of his mother singing the same lullaby she had sung to him in her womb. All he had was her dying protection. Alas, the pleasurable torment did not last long. As the elation started to flee, the craving for the gratification to return only grew stronger. He let out a defeated sigh as all the heartache waned to a dull nothingness. Eventually, bleak thoughts dragged his mind back to the cruel reality. He was still alone in the dark, loveless and void of meaning, hollow. That was when the urge to end it all began scratching, resurfacing, just as it always had. For years, decades, for a century. This pain will be enough, he thought. I can feel it. Bitterly clinging to his newfound resolve to face the end, he released himself from the small, lightless prison he had conjured with his Crystalla. Choking the ashen yellow sky were darker clouds on the brink of releasing all their pent-up pressure. The rain has come to bid me farewell. Under his command, the mass of microscopic crylons that made up his Crystalla moved as one until they began coalescing around his body, settling into plain grey robes that covered his pale and battered skin. His sunken head caught a distorted shimmer of light upon his left fingers, which were covered in coarse scars, the scars of a mistake. One Cascius would never let himself forget. A cold shiver danced down his spine as he looked down at his exposed toes clinging to the cold rock of a vast precipice. Lifting his head in a trance, he gazed out at the midnight blue desert that stretched to the horizon in rolling mounds and lifeless plains. The remnants of a once great ocean, now uncovered and left bare, brutalised by countless years of stinging wind. It mirrored his own self, his Ellen vital. The cold wind upon his face left his sorrows bare and exposed. A misty drizzle of rain began to fall. Leaping off and joining these sands was how he had envisioned his end for far too many years now, instead of taking some quicker and easier way out like his mother. Not that he thought what she had done was easy. In truth, he thought it was the bravest thing anyone had ever done. Cascius shifted, wincing from the icy unease still crawling through his veins. The guilt of his mistakes burned in his chest, making it hard to breathe. The sorrow of all those he'd lost or failed to protect echoed in his mind. Solemnly, he peered at the shifting streaks of wind-blown azure desert as the longing to join the sands and drift away reached its climax. This is it. This has to be it. Cascius edged closer, ready to jump off. As always, something inside held him back. At first, he thought it was his addiction to his sorrows that would not allow his death. Yet he started to wonder, is that truly what is keeping me from ending it? Or am I rife with Malnetha? The madness that Malnetha endlessly spewed into the cosmos could be subtle in its manifestations. There were times that Cascius thought he had become no better than the mad diseased Zenlians. Yet no matter where he went or what he did, Malnetha had never ensnared him the way it did others. Yet Malnetha undoubtedly had a hold over some part of his being. "What is stopping me?" Cascius cried into the endless wasteland. "Please, I need to know." No answer came, just despair on a harsh gust of wind. The courage slipped through his grasp, and Cascius knew the moment was over. He fell into a numb emptiness, an escape from everything, yet one that never lasted. Far removed from Velutran society on this forsaken world of Bellastar, far away from the homelands Zakiran had burnt, it was the same every day. He could never find the strength to overcome this haunting malady and end his life. In the last month alone, he could not count how many times he had stood in this spot. He was too shackled to misery to search his mind for the answer, too defeated to know how often he had dragged himself back up to his decrepit house in shame. Today was no different. This has been a reading of chapters 1 and 2 of A Dirge for Cascius Part 1 by Calum Lott. I hope you've enjoyed this reading. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you all soon.